There's a national public radio show called Invisibilia, and I am becoming a big fan. I don't know if any of you have heard it before. Okay. Well, Invisibilia, which is a Latin word which means all the invisible things, is about the invisible forces that influence human behavior, ideas, beliefs, assumptions, and emotions. I recently encountered an episode called Flipping the Script, which means when someone does something that is unexpected or non-equivalent, taking the script as it would be written and doing something completely different. Like when someone is angry at you and you don't respond with anger. Like when someone is anxious and instead you act as a non-anxious presence. Like when you are told to be afraid and you don't react out of fear. Like when you expect that someone would behave a certain way and they do the opposite. This program, Flipping the Script, told a few different true stories. The first was about when a group of 8 friends in Washington, D.C. had gathered together around a backyard dinner table to celebrate friendship, good food, good wine, and that particular day in their lives. And it was getting late, so some were leaving. And they were standing to say goodbye. And all of a sudden, unexpectedly, the long barrel of a gun came between 2 of the women. Everyone, astounded, fell silent as the man, in clean, high-end athletic clothes, pointed the gun at one woman, then another, with the words, "Give me your money." He said it a few times. But the problem was, no one had any money with them. One of them tried guilt. "What would your mother think of you?" was the question. "I don't have a mother," he replied, growing more agitated. Then someone had an idea. She flipped the script, behaved in a way that is sometimes called non-complimentary, meaning that an action doesn't get the expected result, but the opposite. She said, "You know, we're here celebrating. Why don't you have a glass of wine?" After a loaded pause, he took a glass and took a sip. He commented after a moment, "That's really good wine." Then he took some cheese. He put the gun in his pocket. Finally, as the stars twinkled above them and they all watched, he said, "I think I've come to the wrong place." Then he asked, "Can I get a hug?" When one person and then another hugged him, he asked for a group hug. And then he said he was sorry. He left with a glass of wine in his hand. Later, they found the empty glass carefully placed beside the driveway on the sidewalk. And they went into the house and cried in relief and gratitude. When I think of a story that goes from point to point rationally and doesn't involve any flipping or anything unexpected, I think of the children's book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Maybe some of you have read it to your children and grandchildren. If you've ever read that book, you know that it starts, "If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. When you give him the milk, he'll probably ask you for a straw. When he's finished, he'll ask you for a napkin." And on it goes. The end may not be predictable from the first words, but each sentence follows logically in a neat little circle, ending with the words, "And chances are, if he asks you for a glass of milk, he's going to want a cookie to go with it," which makes it a delightful children's book. But the true story of the man with the gun has one point that everything turns on, which makes it unpredictable. What is that turning point? Do you remember?
Her response with a glass of wine, she, instead of reacting from fear or some other place, she invites him.
Okay. She says, we're celebrating. Why don't you have a glass of wine? Okay. All right. So what does flipping the script and offering him a glass of wine do for him?
It allows her an out.
Okay. It allows him an out. What else?
It feels lonely.
He feels wanted. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Yes, Jim.
He enjoys the warmth of their hospitality.
He enjoys the warmth of their hospitality. Okay. All right. So somehow he maybe starts to feel a little bit more human, a little more connected with you. Right? Okay. So our gospel lesson for today is kind of like that. It has tones of Advent and it's called to be prepared. What I want to point out today is the story. Be dressed for action and have your lamps lit, we read. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes, Jesus says. And here's the question. What would be the logical next sentence? Anybody remember? Well, maybe something like, truly I tell you, he will reward them when they fasten their belt and have him sit down to eat, and they come and serve him. If he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. So how is the script flipped here? What's unexpected?
They are served, the slaves.
Okay, all right. So you're thinking that they need to be watchful because as soon as he comes, they're going to have to do this work for him. They're going to have to serve him. Okay? But it doesn't happen that way. They're asked to be watchful so that when he comes, something different happens. So how does that make you feel to hear that?
Energized,
Okay.
hopeful.
But we're so used to masters staying masters and slaves or servants serving, right? Okay, so energized, hopeful, something different happens there. So after we come to terms with that, flipping the script there, we can return to the first verses of this text for today. Do not fear, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms, Jesus says. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So, we should be busy making purses of the right kind, right? More work to add to our plate. Well, maybe we can think about it in this way. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of work when we realize that our treasure happens to be our master who gives us himself and who serves us. I also think that the healthy things we treasure about our lives might be a clue to our true treasure, our master, the one we're told to love with all our heart and soul and mind and strength, as we heard in the story of the Good Samaritan. So what things do you treasure? Anybody?
Family and animals.
Family and animals. Family and music. Okay.
Serving others,
Serving
relationships,
relationships. Anybody else?
Good.
Good health. Okay. All right. Well, I think the clue is that those things are not the sort of things that might wear out or be stolen or disintegrate like moth-eaten fabric, right? Might they be a reflection of God's love for you? Okay. Well, the Flip the Script program ends with another story that I found really interesting. A man named David is a reasonably attractive, somewhat shy man, but he never had much luck with dating. He was attracted to women, but it seemed that they weren't necessarily attracted to him. From hearing more than once, "You're not my type," after what seemed like a successful date, to online dating that didn't seem to work for him because it was all about making yourself seem successful, beautiful, very few flaws. All of a sudden, he had an idea. He would flip the script. He created an online dating service called, get this, Settle for Love. Okay? Doesn't sound too pretentious, does it? Not much about harmony or matching up or any of the other terms that promise a successful experience. This man David says, "We wanted a name like Settle because it just kind of slaps people in the face and says, hey, wake up. You're not perfect. Your partner's not going to be perfect, or your date's not going to be perfect. Your wife or husband is not going to be perfect. But again, you can be perfect for each other. You can. The imperfections are what make us real. They're what make us us." When David created his online dating profile, there was a photo of him on the left side with a wide smile, looking, in his words, like a hunk. And on the right side is a photo of the prominent bald spot on the top of his head. On the left, he listed these pros. "I'm intelligent and love challenging myself. I'm kind-hearted and passionate. I rescued a German Shepherd." And on the right, these cons. "I live with my parents. I have anxiety and PTSD. The Settle for Love online dating site languished for a while with just a few subscribers. And then one day, Good Morning America called David and wanted to know more about it. And the publicity took them from 50 to 1,000 subscribers almost overnight. David says, "It seemed that person after person wanted into a site that allowed them to not just be their happy, shiny internet selves, but also be human." And being human is what reminds us that we are humble servants. It helps us to remember what an amazing thing it is that the master of the house wants us awake and alert so that when he arrives, he can serve us. So we come to the table in a few minutes, where he serves as host, offering himself, and where our Lord, our treasure, holds our hearts. We give thanks, we share, we remember to be human. We remember that the first one to flip the script is always God. And we pray for the humility and the grace